Welcome to this explainer. Okay, right off the bat, I want you to take a second and really truly picture a scenario with me. Let's set the scene. Imagine it is the absolute dead of winter. It's one of those pitch dark, freezing, quiet nights. You know the kind. You are completely alone in your house, the wind is just howling outside, physically rattling the window panes, and your entire neighborhood is dead silent. You are just settling in for the evening. Maybe you're reading a good book, maybe you're binge-watching TV, feeling perfectly safe, warm and secure behind your heavy, dead-bolted doors. Everything is totally normal, and then you hear it. A slow, deliberate knock at your front door. You check your watch. It is way past midnight. I mean, nobody comes knocking at this hour. Your heart instantly skips a beat, right? You slowly get up, you creep toward the door, and you quietly peek outside into the cold darkness.
But standing there on your porch, it isn't some menacing intruder in a ski mask, and it definitely isn't the police. It's two young children. They look to be, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 years old, but something is off. Their clothes are a bit drab, maybe they're poorly fitted or just strangely old-fashioned for the modern day, like they stepped out of a totally different decade. They're looking down at the ground, and then, in this strange, flat, completely monotone voice, they tell you that they are lost. They say they need to come inside to use your phone to call their parents. On the surface, it seems like the absolute most innocent request in the world, right? It's just children in need. Obviously, you should help them. But every single instinct in your body, every primal alarm bell ringing in your lizard brain is suddenly screaming at you to run away, do not open that door. The cognitive dissonance here is literally paralyzing. So the ultimate question is, would you let them in?
Well, you probably wouldn't, because if you look closely, you will notice exactly what a journalist named Brian Bethel realized during his absolutely terrifying encounter way back in 1998. He described looking at these children and seeing, well, quote, not merely very dark human eyes, but eyes lacking sclera, iris, and pupil, end quote. He saw complete, endless, terrifying black voids where their eyes should be, just solid, inky blackness staring right back at him.
Section 1. The Midnight Knock. The Birth of a Legend.
Okay, let's dive into this, because to really understand this totally terrifying phenomenon, we have to go back to the very first documented modern encounter that essentially birthed this massive, sprawling internet legend. It happened to that Texas journalist I just mentioned, Brian Bethel, in the late 1990s. And keep in mind, this was well before the internet was completely crowded with ghost stories and viral hoaxes. This was early internet days. So Bethel was sitting completely alone in his parked car at night in Abilene, Texas. He was doing something super mundane, literally just writing out a check to drop in a nearby payment box under a streetlight. Nothing creepy about it. But suddenly, two boys approached his driver's side window. They asked for a ride home, claiming they had forgotten their money to buy a movie ticket. Simple enough, right? But before Bethel even really registered their faces, before he really looked at them, he reported this overwhelming, sudden sensation of intense physical illness. A creeping dread and just sheer, unadulterated panic welled up in his chest for absolutely no logical reason. The lead boy became increasingly urgent. He started aggressively demanding to be let into the car. And that, my friends, is when Bethel looked up, locked gazes, and realized with sheer, paralyzing horror that the boy's eyes were pitch black. He threw the car into gear and sped away into the night, physically shaking with terror. And you know what? When he posted this experience on an early paranormal mailing list, the internet absolutely exploded. The idea spread like wildfire.
Section 2. Rules of the Encounter. The Anatomy of Fear.
So after Bethel's story went completely viral, something super fascinating happened. A massive flood of eyewitness accounts started pouring in from all across the globe, popping up on message boards and early websites everywhere. And it wasn't just random, disjointed sightings. No, a terrifyingly consistent pattern emerged. According to the lore that built up, black-eyed kids, or BEKs as they're often called, share very specific characteristics. First and foremost, obviously, they possess those solid black voids for eyes. It's their defining signature. But they also often have extremely pale, almost sickly sort of artificial-looking skin, like plastic, almost. They speak in these bizarre monotone voices, and they use unusual or slightly formal language that simply doesn't fit the vocabulary of normal modern kids. Like, they don't use slang at all, and they almost always move in pairs. You rarely see just one. But honestly, most importantly out of all of this, their presence instills an instant, completely irrational fear in the witness. It's this heavy, oppressive feeling of dread that hits the victim before they even consciously notice the eyes. They feel entirely alien. It's like a predator that's disguised, but just poorly disguised, in human form.
Now, what's really interesting here is the most chilling psychological catch to this entire legend. It's their limitation. They cannot enter without your explicit permission. This is a huge, unbreakable rule. They will knock on your door in the dead of night, or they'll tap on your car window, and they will demand, plead, and absolutely insist that you let them in. They will come up with all sorts of excuses. They'll say they need a phone, a drink of water, or a ride home to their mother. But here's the thing. They are completely powerless to cross that threshold unless you actually say the word yes. It's a classic, terrifying element ripped straight from traditional vampire lore, isn't it? It places the ultimate burden of the horror directly onto the victim. It's not just a monster attacking you. You have to actively invite the nightmare inside. That's what makes it so incredibly creepy.
Section 3. Tracing the origins. Before the internet. Let's shift gears for a moment and put on our analytical hats here. Where did this actually come from? Like, is it entirely an invention of the late 90s digital age? Just some early internet meme? Or are there deeper historical roots to this phenomenon? Well, researchers have actually tried to trace these encounters back through history, and while Bethel's 1998 account is for sure the famous modern spark that lit the match, paranormal researchers point to much older stories. Take, for instance, an account from a teenager named Harold, way back in the 1950s. He supposedly encountered a very demanding, black-eyed boy on an isolated rural country road in broad daylight. Then, moving forward into the 1960s, we see reports emerging from the dense forests of Cannock Chase over in the UK. And then, of course, the 1998 internet explosion we already talked about. So, tracing these historical breadcrumbs really suggests that this archetype, this specific kind of creepy encounter, actually existed deep within oral folklore way before we had digital forms to share it on. It's like a giant puzzle with pieces scattered across decades.
Section 4. The British Variation. A Tale of Two Legends.
What is particularly fascinating about folklore, and we see this all the time, is how it adapts to its cultural geography. It changes depending on where you are. The North American black-eyed kids, they are aggressive. They are very in your face. They are often interpreted as demonic or maybe even extraterrestrial entities. They boldly demand entry, they incite absolute terror, and they almost exclusively appear in the pitch black of night when you feel most vulnerable. But the British variation, specifically those historical reports I mentioned around the Cannock Chase forest, it is an entirely different vibe. Those entities are seen more as ghostly apparitions. In fact, they are specifically tied to tragic local murders from the 1960s. They appear in the daytime, believe it or not, and instead of aggressively demanding entry into a car or a home with malicious intent, they just look lost. They melancholically ask for help. It really highlights a beautiful and haunting contrast here. You have the localized tragic ghost story of the UK versus the highly aggressive home invasion-style terror of the North American legend. Same creepy eyes, totally different approach.
Section 5. Debunking the legend. Turning on the lights.
All right, let's turn on the lights, shake off the chills, and completely flip the script. It is time to gut this legend, to completely debunk it, look at it entirely rationally, and strip away the campfire ghost story. When we actually examine the black-eyed kids through the hard scientific lens of evolutionary biology and psychology, I promise you, the supernatural facade crumbles immediately. So the crucial point is understanding exactly how our human brains are wired. Have you ever heard of the uncanny valley? It's the psychological revulsion, that deep discomfort we feel when a humanoid figure closely resembles a human but is just slightly off. Now, from an evolutionary standpoint, humans possess what's known as the cooperative eye hypothesis. This is absolutely fascinating. We literally evolved to rely on the highly visible white sclera of human eyes. We use it to read complex emotions, to determine someone's intent, and to track gaze direction. It's how we know if someone is friendly or a threat. So when you encounter an entity that looks completely human but lacks that essential white sclera, your brain cannot read its intentions. It completely glitches out. It interprets the subject as either deeply diseased or as an immediate visceral predator. It bypasses logic and directly triggers an involuntary, massive fight or flight response. That biological alarm perfectly explains that primal fear every single witness claims to feel, usually before they even consciously process what they are looking at.
And as for what people are actually seeing out there in the dark, well, medical professionals, researchers, and skeptics have provided some very grounded, highly concrete explanations. First off, full-eye sclera contact lenses. These are contacts that cover the entire eye in black. They are incredibly easily accessible online right now, and they are frequently used by teenagers playing late-night pranks. It's a classic gag. Then there are genuine actual medical conditions like aniridia, or blown pupils, which literally make the eyes appear entirely dark naturally. Furthermore, we have to acknowledge that certain recreational drugs can cause massive pupil dilation, making the eyes look almost pitch black in dim light. Now here's where it all comes together.
Combine any of these very real, physical, everyday phenomena with a late-night encounter when you're already jumpy, and throw in an internet culture primed for creepypasta, those viral user-generated horror stories, and boom, you create a powerful psychological feedback loop. People read the scary stories online, they get spooked, so when they encounter some teenager pulling a dumb prank or someone with dilated pupils at night, their panicked brain just fills in the gaps and creates a monster. You literally have the absolute perfect recipe for a modern myth.
Science writer Sharon A. Hill really hits the nail on the head here. She sums up the definitive thesis of this entire phenomenon perfectly. She states, and I quote, "They are not supernatural. That doesn't stop people from continuing to see them," end quote. It's absolutely crucial to understand this. Black-eyed kids are essentially just the digital age's evolution of deeply traditional folklore. Think about it. Hundreds of years ago, people projected their everyday anxieties into the dark woods, right? They saw phantom black dogs, or they imagined fairies coming to steal their children in the night. Today, our modern anxieties just manifest differently. They manifest as creepy children knocking on our front doors. It directly taps into our contemporary modern-day fears. Fears of home invasion, fears of falling for scams, and the terror of the unknown violating our completely safe personal spaces. The monster changes, but the human fear remains exactly the same.
But honestly, the ultimate paradox here, the single fact that completely and utterly debunks the entire legend, no questions asked, is this. Sightings of black-eyed kids absolutely peaked in the late 1990s and early 2000s. Now, what was happening then? That was an era when the internet was brand new and stories spread fast through text on forums, but we didn't have cameras everywhere. But look at our world today. Look around. We live in an era of unprecedented 24/7 surveillance. Millions upon millions of homes have high-definition Ring doorbell cameras recording everything. Dash cams are running in every other vehicle on the road. Literally everyone has a 4K camera sitting right in their pocket at all times. If these entities are constantly wandering our neighborhoods, if they are approaching parked cars every night and knocking on front doors across the globe, where is the footage? Seriously, where is the definitive doorbell camera footage? Where is the undeniable, crisp 4K video evidence of these black-eyed kids standing on a porch demanding to be let in? It doesn't exist. The absolute lack of concrete visual proof in the modern era tells us literally everything we need to know. The cameras debunk the ghost.
So, there you have it. The mystery is solved. The black-eyed kids are an incredibly well-crafted, highly viral urban legend. They were born from a single internet post. They were fueled by our biological, hardwired fears of the uncanny valley. And they've been kept alive simply by our deeply human love for a really good scare. They aren't real. I promise. You are perfectly safe behind your locked doors tonight. But I will leave you with this final little provocative thought. Even knowing all the science we just talked about, even knowing the evolutionary psychology behind the eye's sclera, and knowing the absolute undeniable lack of video evidence from all those doorbell cameras, if you are home completely alone tonight, the wind is howling, it's pitch black outside, and you hear a slow, deliberate knock at your front door at 2 a.m., would you still have the courage to walk up and look through the peephole? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and remember to always stay curious.